So I think in a year we've had really one of our most successful years running the VCT. It's actually quite good to remember that kind of a question. I think you probably have to rephrase it to me saying, so if you've been doing this for so long, why aren't you smart? It's useful. The job never gets any less challenging. And while I do think the portfolio's got into a very good place, the world remains, well, the world is becoming a very, very difficult place to understand. There's so many changes going on. So I'm really going to sort of throw out one or two ideas about how we're seeing things and why we do the kind of things we do. Before I do that, I'd like to say a few thank yous. And to do that using the analogy, I sort of sometimes think about, well, what is it we really do as fund managers? And I'm going to indulge a bit in the analogy of saying, well, a fund manager is a little bit like the conductor of an orchestra. We don't actually we don't produce any sound ourselves. And that's why in this event, we're trying to show you some of the players in the orchestra. So we had two companies. The portfolio, the entrepreneurs that we back, effectively, that's the orchestra. And our job is to say, well, we want a bit more horns here, or maybe we need some more cellos, or we need, a couple of flutes would be good at this point. We're tremendously grateful, really. We can never be, we're only as good as our orchestra, if you see what I mean. So we can't do anything without great entrepreneurs, creative people who come up with good ideas and have the courage, if you like, to go out there and make things happen. And it's extremely difficult. It requires a lot of experience, a lot of skill, and it requires financing. And then we have our audience, who are our shareholders, to whom we're hugely grateful for your support. At Amati, I see really as it's like a family business, and we're a fairly small team. We have a great team of people in Edinburgh and a couple in London who I hope whenever you contact us, and many of you do ring in with questions, and I hope you get very good support. I'm very grateful to my team of my colleagues who I think do a wonderful job, but also to you, our shareholders, for supporting us over many years, and particularly in a VCT where we fully understand when you invest in a VCT, it's a pretty long-term commitment, and we do our best to respect that. And equally to our board, who I was trying to think of the right analogy for the board in this conductor. And I suppose the board are really the impresarios who operate behind the scenes, who put the whole thing on in a way. And if the impresario, if he gets fed up with the conductor, just gets a new one. So we're very aware of that. And we had a couple of important retirements from the boards because of the merger, and I'd just like to say a quick mention of that. Julian Avery, who was the chairman of Amati VCT2, has been with us. I've worked very closely with Julian for 7 years. Was a wonderful chairman of Amati VCT2, somebody from whom I learnt a lot. Ran the VCT with great rigour and thoughtfulness and diligence, and was very thoroughgoing in his approach, and I think that produced very high standard of results. And also Charles Pinney left the Amati VCT board, and Charles is somebody who was with me right from the beginning when I first went into VCT fund management at First State Investments in 2005, so 13 years ago. And Charlie, along with Peter, were two of the original directors of that VCT. And I'm hugely grateful to Charlie too. He's not here today, sadly. He did send me a text earlier saying, unfortunately, we were competing with him being on the beach in Cornwall and we lost. But I'm hugely grateful for Charlie too, who in Amati has a legendary reputation for proofreading, and but was also hugely supportive, had a great understanding of the financial markets and the product that we were running. So now I'm aware that all the chess players in the room won't have heard a word I've said. You'll be trying to solve this puzzle. So I should explain what this is and why I put it up. This is it's a chess match that was played. I haven't looked at this for a little while, actually. It was a chess match that was played last year in November, and it's become very famous. There's 10 of these chess matches been published, and on playing black, we have a computer chess program called Stockfish 3, which is, or was known as, pretty much the best computer engine in the world until November. And playing white, we have another computer program called Alpha Zero, which The origins of AlphaZero are interesting because they actually come from a British company, a UK Cambridge-based company called DeepMinds, and somebody who has become a friend, but who's also one of the non-executive directors to two of our important portfolio companies, Accesso and Frontier Developments, was one of the founders of DeepMinds, one of the original investors in it. And DeepMinds got bought by Google, and I suppose partly as a bit of a publicity stunt, one of the things Google has done with DeepMinds is to develop some new engines for playing games. The first one they did was Go, and famously they beat the world's master champion at Go, which had never been done by a computer before. But then they suddenly produced this program in November, and there was a computer competition. So it was only chess engines playing each other. And AlphaZero and Stockfish played 100 matches, and I think the statistics were that AlphaZero won 27 and drew all of the other ones. So in other words, Stockfish won no matches. And this was if you like, a bit of a revolution in the chess world. And what's particularly interesting, and why I got interested in this, is because AlphaZero, what's remarkable about it is it plays really like a human player, plays with astonishing creativity, inventiveness, originality. And this is a moment from the 10th game that's been published. And it's a really key moment. And for those of you who aren't chess players, forgive me. For those of you who can see what's going on, actually this, you can see here that White's knight, this is AlphaZero's knight, has got itself into a position where there's no really good way out. It's White's to move. If it doesn't move the knight, he's going to lose it. It's not guarded. The king can take it. And losing a piece in this kind of level of chess is a very, very big deal. And it's very, very fine differences tip the balance in the end in these games. And so the puzzle is, what does White do? Does it give up this knight or not? And I think all I'm going to say about that, I'm not going to tell you the answer to this, but what I will tell you is that AlphaZero doesn't move the knight and gives up the piece. And the other thing I'll say is that the reason that this is so remarkable is that the compensation for doing this piece, a sacrifice of a piece, the compensation for it comes 19 moves later. So if anyone can solve this chess puzzle, there's a very big prize awaiting. So the reason for mentioning this is really, this for me is a very good way of encapsulating the astonishing pace of change in technology in the world today, a mind-boggling pace. I'm running out of time here badly, so I'm going to scoot on. I'll just very quickly talk about this slide. Don't read the detail of it. It's just the shape of this curve is all that matters. There's an economist who I'm an admirer of called Carlota Perez, who has produced various theories about industrial revolutions. And the idea goes there's a phase of interruption, there's a phase of frenzy, and then there's a phase of synergy, which he calls the golden age, and then the phase of maturity. And if you like, if you apply this to what is widely regarded as the industrial revolution of digital technology, then this really starts in about 1972, and when you have the invention of the microprocessor and the microcomputer, the desktop computer. The age of frenzy, of course, is the dot-com boom, and then you have what she calls the turning point, which turns on a crash. And in our case, two crashes. We had the dot-com boom crash and then the 2008 financial crisis. And if you like, I think the reason I'm bringing this up is because the phase we're currently in, and I think this is an explanation of why this has been such a good year and why this is such a good climate for investment, is the golden age. It's the age of implementation, when it becomes possible for companies, the technology is mature enough that it can be applied to all kinds of different industries very effectively, and that can make a difference and it can be commercialized. Whereas in the dot-com boom, these things were pipe dreams. And so the enthusiasm was there, but the reality wasn't. Over the last decade, we've seen these things become real. And that's why, I like to bring companies in front of you to talk about the nitty-gritty of what they do. But the defining characteristic, if you like, is the kind of companies we invest in are those that are innovative in their application of technology, that have huge domain expertise in an industry, that really understand a particular niche market, and they can apply this technology effectively and be one of the first to do so. And then that turns into the commercial possibilities that open up from that become very tangible and real. And I could go down our list of stocks and try and illustrate how those points apply, but it applies remarkably consistently through all the kinds of companies we see. And of course, those are the kind of companies we like to back. And they're the kind of companies that are very important for this country as well. Just very quickly, I'll show you the progress of the portfolio over the last few years. I did this a year ago too, but it's now moved on a step. This was February 2012. Market cap, we've talked a little about this. This is the same bubble graph. It's how it looked 6 years ago. The biggest company in the portfolio was under £200 million market cap. If we move on to 2015, you can see the bubbles have risen a little bit. But on this scale, this is a very compressed scale because it goes up to date. It doesn't appear to be that big. 2017, just over a year ago, February 2017, our biggest holdings were about £400 million market cap. And then if I jump to where we are today, that's the picture. And these are very big changes, and you can see how the portfolio has matured hugely over that period. And just relate that back to the slide before about the implementation phase, the commercialization of these kind of technologies. That's really what all of these companies are doing, and they're prospering doing it. I think before I run out of time, I'd say the reason I like to talk about that Carlota Perez side is because it's a very positive narrative, and it's worth remembering when the headlines are not filled with this stuff. The headlines we're reading and the things we're having to think a lot about are actually very negative at the moment, and it'd be very easy to just want to run away in the face of some of the things some of the apparent risks that are facing us, and that would have been true 5-6 years ago too. Clearly we have such things as in Britain we obviously have the Brexit risk and the uncertainties that's causing. We have an administration in the US, the world's most important market, which is breaking all kinds of new ground and making most of us feel pretty uneasy. And we have generally, I suppose, around looking around the world politically, the thing that is of greatest concern to me is we have overall declining level of freedom, and we start to see, if you should be able to measure, and this would be a hard thing to do, but if you could measure the level of freedom in the world, and there was a company, an NGO that does it, it's been declining over the last few years, and these are things we need to be concerned about. And I suppose the reason for bringing this in here is because I think the work we do and as investors and the companies that you're backing as investors are, if you like, a counterbalance to that. They're creating very positive effects that are maybe acting as a bit of a counterbalance to some of these more negative things that are happening. So I got onto this topic really by way of outlook. I think the outlook is, we remain in a world that's rapidly changing. I think the companies we've invested in the portfolio are a part of that change, and they're well placed within it. Of course, we're acknowledging that there are significant uncertainties coming up, and we do our best we sit down virtually every day and try to figure out what these risks are and to navigate as good a course as we can through them. But clearly there are these are difficult decisions to make, and life as a conductor, if you like, is becoming quite tricky. So finally, I'm going to wind up by giving you the answer to the chess problem, which is, it's not written on, there should be a little red arrow here, but if that has a pointer, yeah, it does. This castle has moved from there to there, completely ignoring the fact that this knight is about to be taken. But 19 moves later, white wins the game very decisively and recaptures all the material it lost. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for coming along. Yeah.